I wasn't looking for another woman. I was actively, almost violently, not looking. My apartment had become a sterile cocoon of my own making, the walls a blank, soothing white, the furniture minimalist and unforgiving. It was a space designed for one, a fortress against the messy, unpredictable landscape of human connection, a landscape I had recently fled, scorched and wounded. The ghost of Sarah was in every empty space where her clutter used to be, in the silence where her laughter once echoed. Loving a woman, I had learned, could be a particular kind of beautiful devastation. It could hollow you out and leave you with nothing but the phantom limb of a shared life. So I was done. I was building a new life on the foundation of being alone. The air in my apartment was still, recycled, smelling faintly of the lemon cleaner I used on every surface. Outside, the city hummed its indifferent tune, a constant reminder of the world I was trying to hold at bay. Then my phone buzzed, a sharp, intrusive sound on the polished surface of my coffee table. It was Maya. A picture of her, 10 years younger, grinning with a gap in her teeth from our college days, flashed on the screen. My stomach did a familiar, unwelcome flip. Hey, her voice was just as I remembered, warm and rough around the edges, like worn-out flannel. Long time. Hey yourself, I managed, trying to sound casual, unaffected. So I have a crazy idea, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice, a sound that used to be the soundtrack to my summers. Remember the old spot? By the lake. I was thinking of heading up this weekend. Get out of this concrete hell for a bit. You should come. My first instinct, my well-honed, self-preservation instinct, was to say no. Camping. With Maya. It was a cocktail of everything I was avoiding, nostalgia, vulnerability, and the great, messy outdoors. It was a direct assault on the sterile peace I had so carefully curated. But then a different thought surfaced, a whisper from a part of me I thought had gone silent. The thought of fresh air, of pine needles under my boots, of a sky so dark you could see the Milky Way. The thought of her. Of seeing the person who knew me before I had built all these walls. Before Sarah. Before everything. I don't know, Maya. Come on, she pressed, gentle but firm. It'll be good for you. Just like old times. We'll build a fire, complain about our jobs, and not talk to another soul for 48 hours. My treat. The offer hung in the air, a lifeline I hadn't known I needed. Maybe solitude wasn't the answer. Maybe what I needed was a different kind of quiet. A quiet shared with the only person who had ever known how to sit with me in silence. Okay, I heard myself say, the word feeling foreign and reckless. Okay, I'm in. The drive up was a study in tension. I sat in the passenger seat of her beat-up truck, a vehicle that smelled of dog, coffee, and something uniquely Maya, a faint, earthy scent of sawdust and fresh air. I stared out the window, watching the city's gray monoliths give way to sprawling suburbs, then to the fiery chaos of autumn trees. The silence in the cab wasn't the comfortable quiet I remembered from our youth, it was a chasm, widened by years and unspoken things. I had my armor on, a carefully constructed shell of monosyllabic answers and feigned interest in the passing scenery. Maya, to her credit, seemed to understand. She didn't push. She just drove, one hand resting easily on the wheel, her thumb tapping out a rhythm against the worn leather. I watched her from the corner of my eye, cataloging the changes. The lines around her eyes were deeper, etched by laughter and sun. There was a small, silvery scar cutting through her left eyebrow that I'd never seen before. Her hands, though, were the same. Strong, capable, with clean, short nails. The hands that had taught me how to skip stones, bait a hook, and one fumbling teenage night, how to open a bottle of cheap wine with a shoe. My heart ached with a dull, familiar throb. It was dangerous, being this close to her. Every detail was a memory, every memory a potential wound. She was a living archive of a version of myself I wasn't sure I recognized anymore, a girl who hadn't yet learned how sharp the edges of love could be. You're quiet, she finally said, her voice soft, not an accusation. Just thinking, I replied, my voice tight. Anything you want to share with the class, she asked, a flash of her old, teasing humor. Just that I'm probably not cut out for this anymore. I think my spine has permanently molded itself to the shape of an office chair. It was a weak attempt at a joke, a deflection. She laughed, a low, genuine sound that vibrated through the seat. Don't worry. We'll whip you back into shape. A little dirt under your fingernails is good for the soul. I didn't answer, just turned back to the window. Good for the soul. My soul felt like a bruised, tender thing I needed to keep wrapped in gauze, not exposed to the elements. Especially not with her as a witness. The last time a woman had seen my soul, she had decided it wasn't enough. The fear of that happening again, especially with Maya, was a cold knot in my stomach. She was the one person whose opinion had always mattered, the one person I had secretly, foolishly, wanted to be enough for. We arrived at the campsite as the afternoon sun began to dip, casting long, dramatic shadows through the pines. The air was crisp, smelling of damp earth and decay in that pleasant, autumnal way. For a moment, a real, unforced smile touched my lips. It felt good to be here, to be away. The feeling was fleeting, immediately replaced by the anxiety of the task ahead. Setting up camp. An act of forced cooperation. All right, let's get this tent up before we lose the light, Maya said, hauling a large canvas bag from the truck bed with an easy strength that made my laptop hunch shoulders ache in sympathy. We unrolled the heavy canvas, the familiar smell of mildew and old adventures filling the air. We worked in a clumsy, unpracticed rhythm, our movements unsynchronized. I kept tripping over guide ropes while she moved with a fluid economy of motion, her body remembering the steps my mind had forgotten. Then came the first sign that this trip was destined for disaster. Where are the stakes? She asked, her hands patting the empty side pocket of the tent bag. I froze. I had been in charge of checking the gear. I'd made a list, checked it twice, but in my fog of post-breakup misery and general reluctance, I must have completely overlooked them. My mind flashed to the small canvas pouch sitting uselessly on the floor of my hall closet. Oh my God, I breathed, the words heavy with failure. Maya, I'm so sorry. I left them at home. A flicker of annoyance crossed her face, so quick I might have imagined it. I braced myself for the lecture, for the I told you so, for the exasperated sigh that would confirm I was, as I suspected, a complete disaster. But it never came. Instead, she surveyed the surrounding woods, her brow furrowed in thought. Okay, she said, her tone maddeningly calm. Okay. Not a problem. We can improvise. Go find me 8 sturdy, straightish branches, about 1.5 feet long. I'll see if I can sharpen some ends with the hatchet. She didn't blame me. She just shifted into problem-solving mode. It was almost worse. Her quiet competence highlighted my own flustered inadequacy. I felt like a child, clumsy and useless. As I trudged into the woods, the damp leaves crunching under my boots, a hot surge of shame and frustration washed over me. I wasn't just rusty at camping, I was rusty at being a person, at being a friend. I was so wrapped up in my own pain that I couldn't even pack a bag properly. I found the branches, my hands clumsy as I snapped them from fallen trees, and brought them back to her. She was already kneeling by the fire pit, skillfully shaving a point onto a thick piece of kindling with her knife. The setting sun caught the silver in her hair, and the focused line of her jaw was devastatingly familiar. I watched her work, my chest tight. This was Maya. Steady. Capable. The rock. And I was the tide, always eroding, always pulling away. As dusk bled into a deep, star-dusted navy, the temperature plummeted. The fire Maya had built crackled and spat, a lone beacon of warmth in the encroaching cold. We sat on a log, huddled close to the flames, tin mugs of instant soup warming our hands. The failed tent, propped up with our makeshift stakes, loomed behind us like a monument to our dubious survival skills. The earlier tension had dissolved, replaced by a shared, weary silence. The physical work and the cold had stripped away some of my defenses. This soup is terrible, I said, breaking the quiet. Maya smirked into her mug. It's not soup. It's a hot savory beverage, says so on the packet. It tastes like salty dishwater. Yeah, but it's hot salty dishwater, she countered, her eyes twinkling in the firelight. We fell silent again, but this time it was easier. The darkness felt like a blanket, offering a strange sort of anonymity. It felt easier to breathe out here, easier to let the tight coil of anxiety in my chest unwind, just a little. I stared into the hypnotic dance of the flames, watching embers spiral up into the infinite black. It was bad, wasn't it? Maya's voice was low, barely disturbing the night air. With Sarah. My head snapped up. I hadn't mentioned Sarah's name since the breakup. Hearing it from Maya's lips felt like a violation, and a relief all at once. I had given her the barest of details over a text message 2 months ago. Sarah and I broke up. I'm okay, a lie, of course. I swallowed, the terrible soup suddenly thick in my throat. Yeah, I admitted, the word a puff of white in the cold. It was. I expected her to press for details, to ask the usual, useless questions. What happened? Whose fault was it? Instead, she just waited, her gaze steady on my face, her expression open and patient. She was giving me the space to speak or not speak. It was her quiet strength, the thing that had always made her feel like a safe harbor. And for the first time in months, I felt the urge to let someone in, to show them the wreckage. She said I was too much and not enough, all at the same time, I said, the words coming out in a rush before I could stop them. Too intense. Too quiet. That loving me was like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. The memory of Sarah's voice, cold and clinical as she delivered her verdict on our relationship, made my eyes sting. I think she wanted a different kind of woman. Someone easier. Lighter. I stopped, horrified at what I'd just revealed. I had guarded that hurt so carefully, and now it was out, laid bare in the flickering firelight between us. I braced for pity, for the well-meaning but empty platitudes. Maya didn't offer any. She just nodded slowly, her expression unreadable for a long moment. She reached over and nudged my shoulder with hers, a small, solid point of contact. Her loss, she said, her voice devoid of sentimentality, a simple statement of fact. She sounds like an idiot, the bluntness of it, the absolute lack of pity, was exactly what I needed. It didn't fix anything, but it made the hurt feel less like a personal failing and more like a simple, unfortunate event. A small crack appeared in the wall around my heart. For the first time, I felt a flicker of warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. Maya didn't pull away after her blunt assessment. She let her shoulder rest against mine, a quiet, grounding pressure. The shared warmth seeped through my jacket, a stark contrast to the cold that seemed to emanate from my own bones. I thought she would leave it there, let my confession hang in the air and dissipate with the wood smoke. But after a few minutes of watching the fire, she spoke again, her voice thoughtful. You know, for the last year, I've felt like I'm treading water, she began, her gaze fixed on the flames. I go to work, I do the job. It's a good job. It pays the bills. But every day feels exactly the same. I come home to my empty apartment, I make dinner for one, I watch something on TV that I won't remember the next day, and I go to sleep. And then I wake up and do it all over again. She paused, poking at a log with a stick, sending a shower of sparks into the darkness. It's not a bad life. I'm not complaining. But it feels flat. Like I'm watching a movie of my own life instead of actually living it. Sometimes I think about just packing a bag and driving until I run out of road. See if there's a place where things don't feel so gray. Her admission surprised me. Maya had always seemed so certain, so rooted. To hear that she felt adrift, too, was disorienting. It dismantled the neat boxes I had put her in, the capable one, the one who had it all figured out. It made her feel human and fallible and suddenly so much closer. We were both just treading water. Her vulnerability was a gift, an answer to my own. It made my pain feel less singular, less isolating. I didn't know you felt that way, I said softly. I don't really talk about it, she shrugged, a wry smile touching her lips. It feels self-indulgent. Complaining about a perfectly good life. It's not, I insisted, turning to look at her properly. It's not self-indulgent to want to feel alive. Our eyes met across the fire, and in that moment, the years between us seemed to melt away. I saw the girl I grew up with, the one who dreamed of being an astronaut, the one who believed in things with a fierce, unwavering passion. And I think she saw me, too. Not the broken, guarded woman I had become, but the person underneath. A silent understanding passed between us, a recognition of the quiet battles we were both fighting. The bridge between us, once a rickety, half-rotted thing, now felt solid enough to walk across. I leaned my shoulder back against hers, a conscious choice this time, and we sat there, watching the fire burn down to glowing embers, two lonely souls finding a sliver of warmth in the vast, cold darkness. The first drop of rain was fat and cold, landing directly on my forehead. I looked up from the glowing coals of the fire to see the stars had vanished, swallowed by a thick blanket of cloud. Another drop hit my cheek. Then another. "Ah-oh," Maya said, her voice low. Within a minute, the drizzle had turned into a downpour.